The debut self-titled album from the French synth-pop artist Heloise Letizier, known more commonly by her stage name Christine and the Queens, garnered impressive commercial success in her native country upon its original release back in 2014. It became readily available in the US a year later and was packaged and released in the UK in 2016 and peaked at number 3 in the album charts, with a few songs translated into English, retaining some tracks delivered entirely in French. What's given to the listener is a dense, rich, and at times sparse album that has plenty of appeal, and overall Letizier has managed to deliver an album that can be enjoyed by anyone, irrespective of nationality and without alienating the listener. Despite there being an element of playfulness in the music, the lyrics do take a more serious tone. Through lyrical analysis that did require a fair bit of translation, the album seems to focus on the aspects of identity, whether it's being trapped and being made to feel bad or being ostracized by outside influences, feelings of unease for not being accepted for who you are, and desires to be freed from these chains. The very first track, It, sees our lead wishing to adopt the identity of a man, not necessarily displaying a transsexual tendency, but primarily because the character Christine feels that as a girl growing up, she felt robbed of certain things that she wouldn't have been denied if her gender was different. The lyrics are quite startling when we enter the third verse and are a real eye-opener in terms of this person's desire. It's stark and quite sad actually, emitting an element of shame for simply being born a girl. St. Claude sees Christine take the bystander effect, bearing witness to someone being hounded for their appearance whilst on a bus journey, and Christine voices her displeasure at what she witnessed, but also lambasts herself for not stepping in and coming to this man's aid. The album's primary theme focuses on relationships, but mostly centres on heartbreak. Paradis Perdu sees our lead being left heartbroken and played by some man who would come to watch her sing at some underground place in London. Jonathan, which sees a guest feature from Perfume Genius frontman Mike Hadrius, tells the story of Heloise being in a previous relationship where her ex would constantly neglect and ignore her whenever the two were alone. This theme carries over into the next track, Narcissus is Back, which sees Christine infatuated with her narcissist ex who continuously wins her back with his charm. However, she manages to find it within herself to eventually leave him. Science Fiction, which sees Christine questioning whether her former lover ever felt the same way for her as she did for him when they were together. And Night 52 sees the culmination of frustration and anger finally coming ahead between two lovers, possibly resulting in a violent confrontation. Instrumentally, the album is heavily rooted in the synth-pop genre, and the album throws in plenty of glistening, danceable moments that are borderline hypnotic in their delivery. But the album also throws in some sparse, melancholic and slow tracks that do offer up some variety. There are some really gorgeous tracks that are given plenty of weight because of the instrumentation, and the best example would be Tilted. It's hands down the best track on the album. It's a song where there's an obvious apprehension coursing through Christine, whether it's about her mortality or what other people make of her. She attempts to put on a brave face and carry on wearing her mask and maintain the facade that everything's fine. The constant drum beat, the warped synth line, and hints of synth flute and strings is quite possibly the best thing I've heard all year, and I mean that. Other moments include the tremolo piano opening on It, which transitions into a fuzzy synth delivery with brief keyboard chords. The piano also opens up the track Night 52 before the drowned out drum is introduced with added synth strings coming into play later on. Narcissus is Back with its low drone bass line with accompanying steel drum pieces. Half Ladies has a great danceable quality to it that's only emphasised with the inclusion of the electric guitars having a great groove around the middle of the song, and Science Fiction for embracing a bouncy, bass-driven futuristic vibe that's a constant source of enjoyment throughout. But there are some moments that don't necessarily grip me, and it's a shame because despite such enjoyable lyrics, the music doesn't always complement the overall presentation. Although it may seem petty, sometimes the inclusion of organic instruments does mean the difference between an okay track and a memorable track. One of the reasons why Safe and Holy tends to fade into the grey matter. I can't help but feel that songs such as Jonathan and Here are in need of some sort of life, as lyrically I do feel that the songs can become somewhat underwhelming. And the worst song on the album, No Harm Done, featuring Philadelphian born Tunji, leaves me needing an adrenaline injection by the end of it. Also, vocally the two don't complement each other all that well. The same that cannot be said however for Heloise and Mike. Overall, I'm very impressed with what I've heard from Christine and the Queens. Not only do the lyrics have a noticeable emotional resonance to them, and the music's sparseness can work on many of the tracks, the highlight here is Heloise's voice. Her voice is the equivalent of liquid gold. It just drips with so much emotion, beauty, elegance, and is just delicate on the ears. I do feel some tracks don't hit the mark in terms of lyrical abundance, some do suffer with the issue of not entirely making the most sense, and there is an element of wanting more out of the instrumentals, but there's still something to extract out of this album, and it's definitely worth worth its salt. Overall, I score this album a 77 out of 100.